Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, here is Juliane Ried. I'm Cochrane's translations coordinator. Some of you might know me, and you're very welcome. I'm happy to welcome you to our webinar today to introduce Memsource for translators. I'm here to answer questions, but actually most of the meeting will be run by Jakub of Memsource, who will be showing us today how Memsource works. And you'll have time for questions, of course, throughout the meeting as well. So I'm handing over to Jakob now.
Thank you, Juliane. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. Just some organizational details before we start. As you know, when you are signing up, we'll talk about the translation process and how to translate in the Memsource editors from the perspective of a translator. So we will not really talk about project management. If you are interested in that, you can always watch some of our other webinars or ask for more information if necessary. Also, this webinar will be recorded, or it's actually recording right now. So if you are running late or you will be leaving early, you will have access to the recording in 24 hours, basically tomorrow, in a follow-up email. So when you registered, we'll also send you the recording via email tomorrow. Without further ado, let's start. So here is how the process will be initiated from the project manager's perspective. So whenever you are given an assignment, you will most probably receive an email notification that informs you about the assignment. So this is one of the examples where you can see some of the details for this specific assignment. This may be a bit different because this is based on an email template, so the project managers can customize this a little bit, but mostly some of the information or most of the information will remain the same. Some details about the assignment, like word count and file names, language combination, and most importantly, this URL link. I know that Cochrane is using a custom URL, so even the portal you will be using to access Memsource is a bit different. That's why on the background you can see only the linguist account. I didn't want to confuse you. So this URL will actually be a bit different. It will have the Cochrane URL, but apart from that, it most probably will be almost the same. So when you receive the notification about new assignment, what you can do, which I won't be doing, not to jump between windows, you could just click on the link and it will take you directly to the project at hand. So this URL directly leads to the project you should be working on. So if I just copy it, we'll actually end up in the project. So for you, you would only receive the email, click on the link, maybe log in if you are not logged in into Memsource yet, and you will see the project that you are supposed to be delivering. Let's just have a quick look around the account so you know what you can expect and orient yourself better before we dive into the project itself. On the left, you can see the 3 tabs that are based on the statuses of the assignments, depending on how you reacted on them. So new is something that you just received, like with the project that we will be looking at in this webinar, or something that you didn't see yet, so maybe that's only being prepared. Accepted, those are sort of in progress assignments that you reacted on, that you agreed to perform. So those will be the translations, reviews, and so on that are currently in progress that you are working on. And completed, of course, that's where everything that has been done is stored. Below that, there is a list of recent items, which covers not only the project, like this one, but also the assignments as well. So if you are working on multiple files, multiple projects, you can directly open the assignments directly from here. But apart from that, this list just contains the 8 most recent items that you accessed. Here on the right-hand corner, you can see your username, and if you click on that, you can access your profile where you maybe want to fill in some details about yourself, or maybe put an avatar there, or sign out when you are signing off the system. In this cogwheel, there are some settings you may want to configure for your account. There is not many of them, but some of them are important. Language, for example, if you prefer to have the interface in your native language, you can choose from one of the 16, I believe, languages that are currently supported for the UI. And maybe the more important option is time zone. So if you are joining or if you are working from a different time zone than your project manager, you don't have to worry about recalculating the deadlines that you receive in the system. If there is a deadline specified for the project by the PM, you only need to specify which time zone you are working from, and all the deadlines inside the project will be automatically recalculated. Last but not least is this question mark, which contains some useful links, some of them more important than others. Getting started, it's just our wiki page or knowledge base page with the same content as is the content of this webinar. So if you want to come back to something in a written form or just read through some bullet point list of instructions, basically with topics that we will cover today, you can access them there. Support, that's our help portal, where you can not only find our knowledge base, but you can also find a way to contact the support if you have any problems or technical trouble. Maybe the most important of these links is the system status. Anytime there is a problem with the system, something is not working, there is a malfunction, we'll always update the status page. So if you experience any trouble, like there was a trouble with Web Editor earlier, or actually later, late last week, I would highly suggest that if you have any problems, this is the first place to go, because there may be an issue with the system that we are already aware of and are already working on it. So there is probably no need to spam support or the project manager if that's something that we already identified and it's already updated on the status page. You can, of course, subscribe to updates. So if there is a problem and you want to be warned if anything happens, you can receive notifications. And of course, whenever the problem is resolved, the page is also updated. So that's for this. One thing I didn't mention in the introduction, I'm sorry for that, is if you have any questions during the webinar, there is a questions section, there is a chat directly, which where you can ask any question you want. We will try to answer them as soon as we see them, but if we don't right away, just be patient, we'll get to them at the very end. So please feel free to ask anything even during the webinar. Moving ahead, we can actually start working on the project. So if we were to click on the link in the email, it would take us directly to the project at hand, which is this one. As you can see, there are different sections, so let's cover all of them. So you know what to find in each of them and what those sections do. Jobs, basically any assignment in Memsource that you get, either if it's a translation, review, different language combinations, all of that, it's jobs. We call them jobs in Memsource. So any file that is imported, any work that you will receive from the project managers is a job. Below that, there are translation memories that have been selected for the project by the project manager. And for those of you who are not familiar with the term and how translation memories operate, let me explain. Translation memory is simply a database of previous translations. So if you have worked on a document and used a translation memory, not only is the translation in the final document, but also the translation memory contains the pairs of segments. So when a translation memory is attached to a project, you will see suggestions coming from it in the course of your work. We'll have a look at that in more detail later in the editor. And this helps you, or actually saves time when working, so you don't have to translate from scratch, but past translations can actually help you and provide suggestions in the course of your work. As opposed to translation memories, there are also term bases, which are simply glossaries of terms that are prepared by the project manager in advance, and you can leverage them in the course of the project. So you will be able to see how certain words, certain phrases should be translated depending on what the project manager has specified, depending on different factors like conventions or how certain things are agreed on for the translation. Without further ado, we can have a look at the translation process itself. So when you receive the assignment and check that you have resources available, you can see that this job that I'm supposed to be translating is still in the status of emailed. So if I try to open it, I click on it to start working on it, I get this error message. It tells me that if I want to make any changes to it, I first need to accept it. So I can open it in read-only mode. I can browse, I can have a look what the document is about, but I cannot make any edits to it unless I accept it. To accept it, you can either click on this accept button right away here, or you can select the job that you want to translate and use this change status to change status to accept it. By doing so, you not only claim the job for yourself and agree to deliver it, but also this sends an automatic email notification to the project manager who has given you the job. So they know, okay, Juliane or Jakub or someone is doing the assignment. To start working on it, all you need to do is just click on the name and it opens in another tab in your browser in the Memsource web editor. Again, let me give you a little tour about this interface and explain some of the parts of it. So in the middle, the biggest and most important part is the translation grid, where you see source segments on the left and target segments on the right. Just to explain what the segments are, anytime you import a file into Memsource, it is segmented. So it's split into meaningful chunks of sentence-like units or other meaningful units of the text, like titles, table of contents, paragraphs, sentences, and so on. So whenever you import a document or whenever a document is imported and prepared by the project manager, so you don't have to worry about this, it's segmented like this. So when we said that the translation memory is a database of previous translations, it's not source document and target document next to each other in a single folder, for example. In fact, it's just a database of these segments. So your translation memory contains this text as the source and its translations as the target. You can see the suggestion right here. This number 100, that's actually a result coming from a translation memory. And it basically tells you that this is the text that is saved in the translation memory, and this is how it's translated. So you can actually reuse this. If you double click it, you can use this and reuse the suggestion, reuse the past translation that was done maybe by you or maybe one of your colleagues. And instead of translating it from scratch, you can just reuse and update the translation itself. On the bottom, this is called in-context preview. You can see the contextual information about the document. It basically shows you what the document looks like as a point of reference. So you can always see what you are translating, and actually you have multiple options how the preview should be displayed. you can choose to see the source at all times. So whatever you translate, you still see what was in the original document in the layout, of course. Or you can switch it to target, as I have here. So when you translate, the preview actually updates. So all the source text here that are sort of gray will be updated and replaced with their translations as you move forward in the document. Last but not least, and maybe the most important part about the editor and the view, is this CAD panel on the right. It essentially contains all the suggestions, all the help that you can receive during your work. So whenever you jump into a segment, Memsource will automatically show you all the available suggestions from translation memories, term bases, or machine translation, depending on what has been enabled for the project. So all the work that you'll be doing is opening the file, clicking into a segment, either filling in the translation yourself or using one of the suggestions that has been given to you by translation memory, term base, or machine translation. The way how they are used, you can actually determine this here in Tools Preferences, where you can determine what should happen when you jump between segments or when you confirm a segment. Because when you are translating and you want to save the translation and commit it into the translation memory, you need to confirm the segment. That way, Memsource knows this is the translation, this is what should go to the TM, and updates it. So the translation process really looks like clicking into a segment, filling in a translation, and confirming it. And when you do confirm, you can determine how Memsource should behave and where it should take you. So in this case, whenever I confirm a segment, I automatically go to the next unconfirmed one. But you can change this. This is completely in your control. You can set it up and customize so it fits into the way you work. Speaking of this, you can actually determine what happens when you go to the next segment. So when you jump there, Memsource automatically, of course, compares the segment that you're translating and that you're working on with the results. But it can also perform pre-translation depending on these settings. So for example, here, let's jump into the next segment, look into the translation memory. If there is any good result, if there is, it will put the translation memory result into the segment. If there is not a good result available, it will try to put a non-translatable there. For those of you not familiar with the term, non-translatables are simply segments that don't require translation, or most probably don't require it. So it can be URLs, it can be IDs, phone numbers, and so on. And based on this, Memsource can automatically insert or copy source to target. So they don't require translation, hence the term non-translatables. And if none of these is available, it can put there a machine translation. So looking at it from the hierarchical perspective, you jump into the segment. If there is a good translation memory match, it will put it there. If there is not, it will try to translate it with non-translatables. If it can't, it will put machine translation result there. But again, this is completely in your control, so you can enable or disable these settings depending on how you work. And if you don't want to pre-translate anything, and you want to be choosing which resources you use, of course, you can completely turn it off and use this CAD panel to insert the results either by double-clicking or in this Edit CAD Results, you can find how to insert the respective result from the CAD panel. So you can either use Control on Windows or Command and a number to insert the numbered result directly. You can see the numbers on the left, or you can scroll through them and you can just insert them by the other keyboard shortcut. So it's completely up to you what is most convenient and how you want it to work. Now, what results you can actually see in the CAD panel? So first of all, and the best, are the translation memory results. And there are different kinds of what are called matches coming from the translation memory, depending on their quality. So in this segment, you can see the number 100, or green number 100, which means this is a 100% match, or otherwise called exact match. And what this means is that the segment you are about to translate, white paper, you already have in your translation memory. Exactly. So you have translated this already. On the other hand, if we look at, for example, this segment, it only contains 98% match. So not the text is the same, but only 98% the same. And here on the bottom, you can actually see the difference. So this was translated in the past, but some parts of it, like this EU is missing and the year is different. So hence, this is not 100% match because it's not exactly the same, but it's only similar. But as opposed to the 100%, let me find the match that I actually need. I don't have one. Never mind. I can just confirm the segment, and here. Now it changed into 101% match. So the 101% match is exactly the same as the 100% one. So the text you are translating is exactly the same in the TM as in the document, but the one additional percent is for context. So not only the text you are about to translate is the same, but it also appears in the same context, in the same place, which is important for multiple reasons, of course. But as an example, here, white paper, if it's only 100%, it means that this could have been translated by you or by someone else in a different kind of a document. So only the set of, or the sequence of characters is the same, but the word white paper could be translated differently in EU document like this or in a shipping order. So the translation is the same, it's 100%, but you maybe don't want to use the translation from the shipment in an EU document. That's why this will not be 101% match, because the context is different. If the translation is coming from a different kind of a document, let's say this 100% match is coming from the shipment, I would actually need to retranslate it for the appropriate context. And when I do that and I confirm the segment, it will automatically become 101% match. So 101 is really the same as the 100, so it's exact match, but it also includes the same context as the 100% match. And of course, as we have seen before in this segment, anything below 100%, it's called fuzzy match, and it's just a similar result to what you are about to translate at the moment. In this segment, we also see results coming from the term base. So when a term base is attached to the project, it can actually show you two different types of results, this yellow one and red one. Yellow one is approved term. So this is how the project manager wants you to translate it. That's the preferred or correct translation. In this case, wheat pepper. But if there is a translation that's actually forbidden, that's literally how the term-based entry is called. It's a forbidden term. That's what shouldn't be used in your translation. So the project managers can mark how certain words should be translated and how they shouldn't be. And that's all you can see in the CAD panel results. So you know how to translate each individual word or term. If we translate this document so we can move ahead. We actually encountered this or these blue marks. These are called formatting tags, and they basically contain any formatting coding that is not that we cannot display in the editors. Here, based on these ribbons, you can see that we can show you these 5 formattings, like bold, that will be displayed directly, italics as well. But if there is something like in this introduction, color of the text, we are not able to show you the color in the editor. That's why instead of the color, there are the formatting tags. So they hide the formatting of the document, and they need to be preserved in your translation exactly in the same way as they are in the source. The main reason for this is if you don't preserve them or preserve them incorrectly, you're breaking the file. So in this case, looking at this Word document, if I just translate this as intro without the tags, when I export the file, or you can actually see it here directly in the preview, the text is not read. Similar to that, we have council here. This is a footnote. But if I remove the tag number 1 from this place and export the file, this text is not a footnote. These seem to be minor issues that can be fixed in terms of post-editing. But if we think about localization files where the tags are actually containing pieces of code, you are literally breaking the files. So if a project manager exports it afterwards without problems and delivers it to the end client, the file can be broken. That's why it's important to preserve the tags as they are in the source to avoid any possible trouble. Of course, there are ways you can do that, and we'll talk about them in a bit. But all you need to do in the course of the translation is translate as you would normally do. And when you encounter the place where the the tag should be entered, you can go just to Edit, Tags, Insert Tag, or use the F8 keyboard shortcut. And it will place the next tag in line on the cursor position. So either you can translate the segment and then fill in the tags into their proper places, or you can just translate and press F8 anytime there is a tag to be inserted. And as I said, it always inserts the next tag in line. So if you enter tag number 1, next you get tag number 2, tag number 3, and so on. So you don't have to worry about how and where to place them. It always goes in a succession. If we move through the document, let me just use this and pretend I'm translating. Now that the file is completed, we can go back to the project, refresh the page, and hopefully not yet. So now I forgot to confirm segments. Okay, I should confirm them, and this one as well. So hopefully I'm too quick. Let me confirm this as well. And if I refresh the page, you can see it's 100% completed. So now the assignment is finished. You have done your translation work, and to deliver it back to the project manager, all you need to do is just mark again, change the status, and change to completed. But in this case, I'm not able to do that because I'm required to run a QA. That's a setting that your project managers can decide to enable and to enforce the quality assurance, which is, even if it's not disabled, it's a good practice to run QA before you try to complete the assignment. Because if we go back to the file, here on the bottom, you can see the QA tab. And if I run it, you can see there are problems that have been introduced during the translation. Some of them might be minor. It might be a spelling mistake. It might be a missing number, missing term, but some of them are more important. For example, tags and formatting. So the QA is a wide range of checks that goes through the document and tries to identify possible problems and point them out, of course, for you to address. And by address, I mean either fix them. So for example, here we have spelling, which is actually incorrect. So either you fix it or you can ignore the warning, because you don't need to fix issues so Memsource likes them. You are ultimately the translators that are responsible for the job. You are the language experts, so you know what's correct. So instead of correcting the mistake or false errors, you can mark them as ignored, which also counts as addressing them. But as I mentioned, some of the warnings are more important than others. Tags and formatting, in this case, our introduction is not read, so it points out that there are missing tags. Or terminology. So if there is terminology that is required, that was inserted by the project manager and you didn't use it, maybe you missed it, the QA will point out that there is a term that you should have been using, but you didn't. And last but not least, you don't have to read through the file again just because the QA found issues. Anytime you click on the QA problem, it will automatically jump to the segment which contains it, so you can directly fix it on the spot. And now if I ignore all the warnings, just to speed things up, let's run the QA again, just to make sure that there are no other issues introduced. Okay, so everything seems fine. So if we now go back to the project and change the status to completed, hopefully the job will be done. The status is completed. Your project manager received an email notification about you completing the assignment. So they know already that you're done, but also you lose access to the file. So before you hand over the assignment, before you mark it as completed, be sure that's the thing you want to do, because if you realize there are issues, there are problems, you forgot about something, and you want to make changes, you need to let the project manager know, and they need to reopen the job for you. So just keep in mind that if you hand it over, you lose access, and if you need to regain the access again, it creates some extra work for you and for the project managers. I think that covers the topic of the webinar. So now if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the questions section. I will be glad to answer them. Okay, any questions? Okay, it seems that everything has been clear. One last reminder, you will receive the recording of the webinar tomorrow in a follow-up email. So if you arrived late or left already, you will get access to the recording tomorrow. And thank you for your attention. I hope this was useful, and maybe talk to you some other time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.